Hi everyone, welcome back to my number sense series. In this video, we're going to be doing a continuation of our last video where we talked about a technique to convert between any number in base 2 and any number in base 4 very easily. And now, as I hinted at the last video, at the end of the last video, there's a very similar technique to convert between base 2 and base 8 very easily. Now, in case you're unaware of what the technique is, let me show you right now. I will convert this number to base 8 right now. I've never tried to convert this number to base 8 before. I made this number up right before recording this video, so I'm going to do it right now. And I'm done. So how did I do that? Well, what I did is I made groups of 3 starting from the right. 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, and this 1. Okay, then I converted 0, 1, and 1 in base 2 into base 8, which was 3. This was base 3. 3 in base 8, and this 1 was 1. And so I knew the answer was going to be 1, 3, 3. But why does it work? Well, I gave an explanation in the last video, but I'm going to repeat it here, just for clarity. Now, first of all, we have to think about the place values, right? What is this value? Well, this has place value 2 to the power of 0. This is place value 2 to the power of 1. This is place value 2 to the power of 2. So this is, 2 cubed, 2 to the 4th, 2 to the 5th, and 2 to the 6th. Then, let's just express this number in base 10 to make it easier for us to comprehend what it is. Now, this is going to be 1 times 2 to the 6th plus 0 times 2 to the 5 plus 1 times 2 to the 4th plus 1 times 2 to the cubed plus 0 times 2 squared plus 1 times 2 to the 1 plus 1 times 2 to the 0. Now, what I'm going to do is group. Once again, I'm making my groups of 3, and in case what I'm doing doesn't make sense at all so far, you will soon see why. Now, out of this group, this group of 1, I'll factor out 2 to the power of 6. Out of this, I'll factor out 2 to the power of 3. When I factor out 2 to the power of 3, what I actually get is 2 to the power of 3 times 3. When I factor out 2 to the 0 from this, what I get is this. And now you can see my digits forming 1, 3, and 3. But why does this work exactly? Well, we are at the finish line basically, but the last step is to stop thinking of it as 2 and think of it as 8. Because 2 to the power of 6, that's equal to 2 cubed and then squared. In other words, 2 to the power of 6 is 8 squared. This is 8, and this is 8 to the 0. So this is 8 squared times 1 plus 8 times 3 plus 8 to the power of 0 times 3. And this is literally base 8. We've turned this into base 8, right? This is telling you that in base 8, the digit that has place value 8 to the power of 0 is going to be 3. This digit is 3, and this digit is 1. It's spelling out for you the value of a base 8 number converted to base 10. So our job is very easy. Convert this back to base 8, 1, 3, and 3. That's it. Now, hopefully that made sense for you. But if it didn't, the most important thing to take away is just making groups of 3 starting from the right and convert each individual group of 3 into one digit in base 8. I'll show you another example right here. Let's convert this number. Once again, we're starting from the right, okay? Always make your group starting from the right so that the proof works. If you don't do that, there's a decent chance that what you're going to get is not like 2 to the power of 6, but rather 2 to the power of 7 or 2 to the power of 8, and then that does not play well with trying to convert that into a power of 8, right? So make these groups, then take this group. Now this is 1, 0, 1 in base 2. Try to convert it to base 8. 1, 0, 1, that's going to be 5. Then 1, 1, 0, that's going to be 6. And 1, 0, 0, that's going to be 4. And so literally our answer is just 4, 6, 5. Once again, the trick is to take groups of 3, convert each individual group of 3 into one digit in base 8, and just write it, in that order. Once again, let's try to do this. But this time we're going to do it in reverse. Because, if we can go from 2 to 8, of course we can go from 8 to 2. It's just like reverse engineering this process. So instead of turning a group of 3 into one digit, we're going to start turning one digit into groups of 3, right? So 6, we have to express that as a 3-digit number in base 2. What's that going to be? That's going to be 1, 1, 0, just like it actually is here. And you'll see that the digits are very similar. So 4, how do we express that in base 2? That's going to be 1, 0, 0. And notice 5, when we express that in base 2, that's 1, 0, 1. So it's going to be 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0 in base 2. And now I want to note another very nice thing about this technique. The largest digit we can have in base 8 is 7. And the biggest 3-digit number we can make in base 2 is 7. And that's not a coincidence, because this technique only works because 8 is 2 to the power of 3. That was the most crucial part of this proof, that 8 is 2 to the power of 3. And so this technique not only works on 2 and 8, but it should also work on any cube, and we're going to see that later. But first of all, let's do one more practice problem, 752 base 8, convert it into base 2. How are we going to do this? Well, you can write right to left for this one, but I still prefer to write right to left. Sorry, you can write left to right, but I prefer to write right to left. Sorry. So 2 in base 8, if we convert that into base 2, what we get is 1, 0. But do not write 1, 0 because it should be a group of 3. If we don't write it as 0, 1, 0 if we don't write it as 0, 1, 0, then we risk, completely losing a digit in our answer. So it should be 0, 1, 0. Then 5 is going to be 1, 0, 1. And then 7 will be, as I said, 1, 1, 1. So this is this base 8 number converted into a 9-digit base 2 number. So, this would take way, way longer if you didn't know this trick and you were converting from base 8 to base 10, then back to base 2. Now, last question. You'll notice that, like our last video, this is not 2 and 8. This is 27 and 3. And so once again, if you don't really understand why this proof works, you might, start flailing around on this problem. Because 27, that is a big number. 27 squared times 9, no one is trying to calculate that. I don't have that memorized. And, most people don't. And you can do this question without having it memorized because this is the same technique, right? This is 2 and 2 cubed. This is 3 and 3 cubed. So there's no reason the proof shouldn't work the same way as it does here, right? The most crucial part of this proof is just the fact that 8 is equal to 2 cubed. And so we have the most crucial part replicated here. 27 is equal to 3 cubed, so we should still be able to use this technique of making groups of 3. So let's do that. But once again, before we do that, I have to introduce something. Now, I want to make a disclaimer. You will probably never see this, or there's a low chance that you will ever see this in a number sense test. But I have a letter here as a digit. Why do I have a letter as a digit? Well, think about it. This is in base 27. In other words, I need 27 digits to make this base. But we live in base 10, so we only have 10 digits. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've never had to make a digit that is bigger than 9. We just write 1, 0. But sometimes we do need a digit bigger than 9, and instead of making random new squiggles that we all have to memorize, we decided to use numbers. So A represents a value of 10 in this place. So this would be like 10 times 27 to the power of 0 plus 5 times 27 plus 9 times 27 squared. That is what this value translates to. So think of A as 10. Okay, so thinking of A as 10, how do you translate that into base 3? Well, 10 in base 3 would be 1, 0, 1. And so that is nice. And remember, once again, it should be a group of 3. Then we have to translate 5 into base 3, which would be normally a 1, 2. But remember, it must be a group of 3 digits, so it has to be 0, 1, 2. Then last question, 9 is 3 squared exactly, so that's nice, it's 1, 0, 0. And this is how we can also convert a base 27 number into a base 3 number instantly in our heads. No scratch work needed. And this is a, as I said, very big number, easily in like the thousands. So you would never do this normally, but if you know this trick, it is super, super, super easy. So this has been how to convert between base 2 and base 8. But, if you watch till the end of the video, hopefully you are if you're listening to this, it's not just base 2 and base 8, it's any number and its cube. 2 and 8, 3 and 27, even 4 and 64, 5 and 125 if you really, really wanted and you had enough digits. Hopefully you understand the proof for this video. But if you don't, that is okay, because just memorize the trick. It's pretty easy to memorize, just taking groups of 3, convert it into the other base, or take groups of 1 and convert it into groups of 3 in the other base, depending on which way to go. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.